She is Dr. Jennifer Smith. She's a naturopathic medical doctor certified in both environmental and Swiss biological medicine. She is also one of a select few physicians in the world certified in the Shoemaker Protocol for Mold and Biotoxin Illness. As the founder of SilverTree Wellness Center, she is unwavering in her commitment to uniting evidence-based medicine, the latest technological advancement, age-old wisdom, and spiritual insight, crafting an unparalleled holistic care paradigm. Please give a big hand to Dr. Jennifer Smith.
Yes. Is it on? Can you hear me speaking? Okay. Thank you. Thank you for inviting me to be here, and I'm really grateful. And I want to talk to you today about an area that I'm very fascinated about, and something that really inspired me in 2014, because I went to a conference. Learning about environmental medicine can sometimes be a little bit daunting, and patients can be very chronically ill. And when you see someone present the way that I saw this mentor of mine present at a conference, it really inspired me. And because my background is in bioregulatory medicine and biohacking, I could really see that it was something that I could bring into the clinic and into the world of environmental medicine. And it's really great for longevity too. So I wanted to share it with you today. So this 95-year-old researcher, he got up on stage to talk about lipid replacement therapy, and he spoke for 2.5 hours without a break, dancing around the stage, talking about the phospholipid bilayer. And so I really became inspired, and that's what I'm going to share with you today. And I have to put my glasses on because I can't see. Okay, so I'm gonna do one. Okay. So my question to you is, what is the key to living forever? Does anybody have any thoughts? So, does anyone know what this is? Oh, whoop. The key. Yeah, so this is the phospholipid bilayer, and it's basically the cell structure of the body, and it's made out of 2 layers. So you have a fatty side and a tail side, and basically it covers all cells of our body. And this is what it's for. So it determines the health of your cell, the health of your body. And in order to have optimal health, it has to be fluid. It has to have structural integrity. It has to be able to perform by putting nutrients in and out of the cell. And it has to be able to remove things that are toxic. And when you have all those things optimized, then you are able to enhance your cellular performance, improve nutrient uptake, and have greater defense against toxins and pathogens. It's important because we are in a time where we are very, very exposed to toxins. And toxins, it's kind of like based on thinking like, how does aging happen in the body? So the body becomes oxidized, and the phospholipids become oxidized. And the best way to demonstrate that is to think about rust. So when your body starts to oxidize, it's like rust on a nail. And aging is part of that process. So if we want to slow down the process of aging, then we have to repair instead of rust. And when we are exposed to a lot of toxins in our foods and in our environment, that oxidizes our phospholipids, and we have greater inflammation, greater cell debris that needs to be removed, and greater damage. So as we age, we may start to notice the effects of aging, such as sagging skin and wrinkles, or our brain might not be as clear. We have a lot of brain fog, or we might develop more fatigue. And we may gain weight around areas of our body that we particularly don't like in the midline. And we might have increased concerns about cardiovascular disease or cognitive decline, or neurodegeneration. And, you know, it's funny because, you know, Mark was up here talking about living to 150, and I always had pride about my mom, because my mom was like, I'm going to live to be over 100. And, you know, she's always very happy about the fact that she was going to outlive everyone and she is going to live over 100. And as she has gotten older, you know, she's like, I don't know if I want to live to 100 anymore. You know, as her body has started to break down, she's kind of changed her mind a little bit. And it's like, well, no, we need to change that, you know? Instead of not feeling like you want to live forever, you know, because you feel the breakdown, like what can we do to help improve the body so you can live to however long you want to live? And when you're done, but you go gracefully. You don't go because you've degenerated. So what lipid replacement therapy is, it is a natural approach utilizing diet, and diet is the most important, supplements and intravenous therapy to repair damaged or rusty cellular membranes, and it replenishes the cell membrane through the use of phospholipids, plasmalogens, which is a huge area that's coming out today, fatty acids, and antioxidants. Did it go? When someone comes in and they want to start looking and assess, you know, whether or not they're a good candidate for lipid replacement therapy, you know, the first thing that I always do with the patient is create a partnership. You know, I may be a doctor, but my job is to partner with you. It's your job to heal. And I can only be a guide, a mentor, and a sounding board to the ideas that you feel comfortable with. And if that partnership is not present, then it becomes really hard, you know, to move forward with care. So partnership first. And then we delve in together to look at the root cause, to see how you can optimize. And that always has to do with diet and lifestyle, you know, looking at exposure history and how the emotional and physical stressors in your everyday life, you know, play a part in your health. Because I'm a biohacker, I like toys. And one of the toys we have in our clinic is called the Menoscan, and it uses heart rate variability and bioimpedance analysis to look at your fitness and well-being status. It can give you your vascular age, and you know, sometimes it's interesting because your age will show, like, it's like, oh my gosh, I'm 10 years older than I really am. And you know, as you improve and get better, then it'll start to go down, and actually you can see it be 10 years younger than you actually are, which is the way we want to see it go. So we use this technology to monitor progress and recovery. And if anyone has ever heard of the InBody, which is a bioimpedance scan, this is like an InBody on steroids. So we always take a comprehensive metabolic panel. And the reason we run the comprehensive metabolic panel is to look at the focus areas of the liver and kidney, bone, immune, nutrition. But the key here is that we're not looking at general reference ranges. We're looking at optimal reference ranges. We don't want to, reference ranges were created and designed to assess the general population. And so the bell curve is so broad that it's not based on well care and optimal care, it's based on sick care. So we want to look at the optimal health patterns. And then we look at the fatty acids. So if we're going to replenish the fatty acids, we have to know whether or not they're deficient or not. And then this is called the prodrome test. And it looks at the total abundance of phosphatidylcholine, phosphatidylethanolamine, which are the key components of the cell membrane. And then it looks at plasmalogens, which we'll talk about more as we go through this talk. So this gives us a focus on the nutritional balance, the inflammation levels. It can tell us a lot about where your heart health stands, you know, and if there's any precursors towards disease. Whether or not the mitochondria are functioning appropriately and getting the energy they need, digestive status, and then also if someone is having neurodegeneration, then we can hone in on how to repair that. And the prodrome test is based on the white blood cells. So white blood cells stay within the body for at least 6 months. So usually we will do a prodrome test, and then if we repeat it again, we want to wait the amount of time that the white blood cells can actually do their job, and the things can build up and change. The red blood cell fatty acid is looking at the red blood cells. So we can repeat a red blood cell fatty acid about every 3 months, but when you don't want to do a lot of testing too early, because you're not going to get to see the benefit, because the body has a timeline, you know, for changing. And the red blood cell fatty acid is looking at how, if there is any damaged fatty acids in the body that could be causing issues like very large chain fatty acids. It also tells us whether or not we have essential fatty acids that are the building blocks. And if we don't have enough of the structural fatty acids, then we're just going to burn up with what the body's using, and we're not replenishing. And then you also have to have a balanced ratio of omega-6 to omega-3. And that omega-6 to omega-3 is really, really important. A lot of people understand that taking omega-3 fish oils is, you know, helps with inflammation, but a lot of people don't understand that you need to also have omega-6 too, and it has to be in balance. As, you know, if you have too much, if you're taking too much fish oil and you're too high on one side, and then you're low in arachidonic acid, which is considered the bad guy, then you will not, your prostaglandin pathway, which is your inflammatory pathway, becomes imbalanced. So there has to be both, you know, there has to be inflammatory and anti-inflammatory. Sometimes you have to do additional testing, especially in the world we live in today with things like, you know, gut health, you know, with COVID, mold, heavy metals, and industrial solvents. So sometimes when those things are found, you know, discovered in an intake, then we look at those areas and look at how we can work on decreasing the toxic burden. And, you know, I'll just make a point here that since COVID, since 2020, that's when I opened my practice, by the way, right before the pandemic. Since COVID began, things have really changed with how bodies respond. And, you know, a lot of people that get COVID ended up with long COVID. And so, you know, that has been an area that we have added to this, into lipid replacement therapy, because a lot of people are needing it, you know, so. So once we've assessed, you know, somebody's nutrient status and where their lipid status is at, then we initiate an individualized lipid replacement protocol. This can look like supplementation, diet, and or intravenous therapy if needed. And there always is a diet and lifestyle program. And the diet and lifestyle program is about eliminating oxidative foods and incorporating more omega-rich foods and antioxidants. We always want to boost detoxification, you know, and that is like, you know, sleep, sunlight, exercise, laughter, all the things, you know, so that has to be present. And anytime you're doing any type of healing, if you don't have the basics, then it becomes very difficult. So the lipid replacement therapy roster is basically what might be involved in getting the cell membrane back to optimal function. So these are many that are in the basic therapy, but, you know, sometimes we don't need them, or, you know, we adjust accordingly. I'm not going to read all the details off the slides. You know, you'll have access to this information later, but I just wanted to summarize, you know, what these players do and what they're for. So the phospholipid is the building block, and it involves, you know, like I said before, it has the outer fatty acid heads and then the inner tails. And on the outside of the membrane, you have phosphatidylcholine, And on the inside of the membrane, you have phosphatidylethanolamine, phosphatidylserine, and phosphatidylinositol. So when we're replenishing phospholipids, we have to be replenishing all of it. Glutathione is considered the master antioxidant. It protects lipids and proteins. It helps protect the DNA from oxidative damage. And it helps to detoxify things from the liver. So it also helps to repair cell membranes and enhances vitamin C and vitamin E. Ox bile, I like to think of ox bile kind of as dish soap for the cells because it helps to break down fats and it shields the cells from stress and toxin buildup. And its cousin, TUDCA or toro oxydecoic acid, which is a big word to say, is like blood-brain barrier soap. So it can cross the blood-brain barrier to remove toxins. It is a bile acid derivative. The difference between the two, if anyone is interested, is that TUDCA is more liver protective and ox bile is primarily for digesting fats. So that's kind of the difference between the two. Butyrate is our gut cell guardian. I love butyrate. Butyrate is becoming one of my favorite nutrients as I'm reading the research and all the things that it's good for. But basically it is a short chain fatty acid and it keeps your gut healthy. It helps your body fight inflammation and it supports your body's overall wellness. It is an excellent source for energy of the body. It reduces inflammation in the gut, it balances insulin and blood sugar, and it supports the gut-brain axis, so thereby improving mood and protecting the brain. The essential fatty acids are your omega-3 and your omega-6 fatty acids. And this is what your body needs for raw material. So, and these are things that you do not get, that you do not make on your own. So you have to get these from food sources. Omega-3s are found in things like flaxseed, chia seed, walnut, and hemp oil. And your body can convert a small amount of those to EPA and DHA. And EPA and DHA we find in salmon, mackerel, and algae. So those are the fish oils. And omega-6 fatty acids are the ones that you find in vegetable oils. So that would be things like soybean, corn, sunflower, nuts, and seeds. And your body converts that into other omega-6s like arachidonic acid, which helps with inflammation and cell signaling. So EFAs are critical for building cell membranes. Like the phospholipid bilayer, they regulate inflammation and support the brain and help to maintain heart health. Leucovorin is like the methylated B friends. So we're going to talk about two methylated Bs, and leucovorin is one of them. And the reason why we use leucovorin is because it does not need to be converted like folic acid, and it supports the machinery that builds and repairs cells, including the fatty membrane and the bilayer. And B12 is the energy booster. So it's also the methylated B friend. So they're best friends, but this one helps with energy. It helps the mitochondria get the fuel it needs so that you have energy production in the cell. And finally is the plasmalogens. There's a lot of research going on about plasmalogens today because plasmalogens are being discovered as very, very important for cognitive vitality and healthy aging. So think of it as kind of as the mortar to the phospholipid building block. It neutralizes free radicals at the membrane's edge and protects the omega-3 and omega-6s. It helps with fluidity and flexibility and function. It's also a very key component in the myelin sheath and helps with nerve signaling. So because phospholipids and plasmalogens are very similar to one another, I just wanted to put them into a graph so that we know what their function is. So phospholipids are 80% of the cell structure, and 20% of that is phospholipids. They're both involved in cell signaling, and plasmalogens help with oxidative stress, where phospholipids help to remove toxins. And synaptic function is mainly done through the plasmalogen. Now I'm just going to go through 3 case studies. These were studies of these are patients that we have seen. Their names have been changed for, to keep their privacy, but just wanted to share some outcomes. So Brian is a 72-year-old male. He was diagnosed with Alzheimer's disease in September of 2023. He was a retired teacher, and he was really struggling with memory loss and had gotten into the point where he was very disorientated, and he had the inability of recognizing family members, was sundowning. And so his wife had brought him in, and we did some phosphatidylcholine IV therapy, because at that point in care, he's in an advanced neurodegenerative disease. So we would go straight to IV phosphatidylcholine and do our lipid replacement therapy in a way that we can do it at higher levels in a quicker response. So I would call that an aggressive protocol. After the 3 weeks of therapy, he was doing a lot better. He was recalling and able to name objects that he wasn't able to do before. And then he went on an oral protocol. So oral protocol is very extensive and sometimes feels, a little daunting because of the amount of shakes you have to drink. But after 4 months, he was able to follow simple conversations. He was navigating in his home and engaging. And after 9 months, he was able to be fully present at a family dinner. Yay! Study number 2, Ryan. He's a 52-year-old male dealing with chronic fatigue, debilitating, can't get out of bed 11 hours a day, just barely surviving, not being able to work. And we uncovered that he had been exposed to mold. And so his symptoms were persistent fatigue, respiratory issues, headaches, especially in the back of the head, and brain fog. Of course, we changed the environment. We got him out of the moldy home. We did all the things that we needed to do for him to be out of the toxic environment. And then he went through, I'm on the right one. He went through 3 weeks of IV phosphatidylcholine lipid exchange. And, the first thing that he was reporting is that he felt less tired and the headache started to go away. Then we went on an oral protocol for another 9 weeks. When we met again, his brain fog had lifted and he was able to engage in a lot of his daily tasks again. He still had some fatigue, but he's doing a lot better. And now that we're about 6 months out, he's, able to engage with his family. He was able to host a dinner. He's feeling a lot clearer headed and more energized. And then our last case study is Emma, a 38-year-old who experienced breast implant illness, and she had implant rupture in 2020. So extreme rashes, chronic fatigue, joint pain. It was all linked to silicone toxicity and inflammation. I wasn't sure how we were going to get the silicone out of her body, because I see a lot of women that have breast implant illness, and so we're always trying to find a way. Ozone sometimes works, but it's not as effective. So I was like, okay, well, let's do PC. Let's see if we can get your movement in your health with phosphatidylcholine. And so she came in, she did 3 weeks of IV oral phosphatidylcholine. She started to feel better, have clear thinking and less fatigue. And we've continued to do IV phosphatidylcholine at least once a week over time. And, but she's also on an oral protocol, so she's doing it at home as well. And her joint pain has gone down. She's no longer getting rashes. She started to resume her light exercise workouts. because I see her once a week, I can see her progress. You know, now she's like all excited about, you know, what can I do to, you know, feel even better? And so, you know, to go from chronic to, you know, being excited about how you're going to live your life, you know, that is just, I'm so grateful that I get to see that every day. So, you know, she did get to go to a friend's wedding that she thought she wasn't going to be able to go to, and she's feeling energized and symptom-free. So that is my my presentation, and I'd be happy to answer any questions if anyone has any.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Do you need a sip of water already?
No, I'm good.
You're good? Okay. Wow. I feel like I have a question about each one of your slides. And I was like, I have a question, and then you moved over. I'm like, oh. Okay. So let's take questions. Just a reminder, we'll take questions from in here, but also questions from you guys online. Go ahead, Melinda.
Marianne, I have a question about so much. It was such great information. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Much more to follow up on, but just two quick questions. Do you prepare the body in any way or recommend some preparation to receive the butyrate?
Oh, like when someone, well, if someone is doing the IV lipid replacement therapy, butyrate is actually done via IV. But when someone is going through, if I'm putting them on an oral protocol, which, you know, I mean, this is how we determine if someone has a severe, aggressive, debilitating illness and they need a lot of PC and sodium phenylbutyrate, we will go to that therapy. If someone, you know, for longevity, you know, they may want to jumpstart. They may want to do IV therapy and say, like, I want to just kick this into gear and I want to clean my cell membranes out, then we'll go to IV therapy. But if someone wants to not do IV therapy, it is totally possible to do it with oral supplementation. And how you do it with oral supplementation is you have to do it in phases. It's like, that's a lot of oil to be giving to the body. So we set it up in 4-week increments, usually 4 to 6 week increments where we build up. And phase 1 is building up the essential fatty acids and usually the phospholipids. Phase 2, I would start butyrate. So I do not start butyrate right off the
Thank you, that answers my question. And then a quick question, do you have a preferred delivery system for the glutathione?
So, you know, if I'm doing the oral protocol, I will give it usually by a oral, you know, like a pump or sometimes capsule, but I don't care if it's by capsule or pump.
Okay, thank you.
Fantastic. Any, Sarah has a question?
A little question. When you take omega-3, do you suggest to take it with vitamin B12?
Which one?
Vitamin B12.
Oh, the vitamin B12, do I take?
With the omega-3.
Yeah, we take vitamin B12 with omega-3, yes. But like I was saying, when I was saying that we do phases, when we do the oral protocol, methylation is phase 3. So I don't ever start a methylation protocol until probably I would do 4 to 6 weeks, 4 to 6 weeks, 4 to 6 weeks, and then once someone's gone through these 3-step phases, then I would put them on the methylated Bs. Because if you start trying to get these pathways working that are not ready to work, or they've been shut down, or there's a lot of toxicity in the body, you can actually aggravate. So you want to do it step by step, replenish, rebuild, then break down the damage and help remove it. Then you repair the antioxidant support, the methylation pathways, etc.
Thank you.
Great. I have a question. Is there, for the lipid therapy, is that something that everybody or anybody can do, or is there like a qualification or contraindication for using it?
No, anyone can do it. And you know, originally I got interested in it because, you know, I was looking at environmental health and, you know, degenerative disease. But then I started to see in the literature, like, phospholipids being used for metabolic syndrome and cardiovascular disease, and then, looking even further at other states of being. And then now there's a huge movement to use phospholipids for longevity. So, I think it's an area that is been around for a while, but we're really it's just really at the forefront of where it's going to go.
And are you using it in conjunction with some other therapies, or stem cells, exosome, peptides, even EBU, or is this something that works best on its own, or do you combine it in a protocol with something else?
So if I was going to put it in a protocol, you never will do oxidative therapy and antioxidative therapy on the same day. So PC has got to be kept separately than ozone. So if someone was going to do EBU, I would either recommend that they do their EBU and then they do phospholipid therapy, or we set up a day in between where it's separated. And then exosomes are great to follow up PC from, but I would do all the PC first, and then I would give the exosomes.
And then how often do you recommend this? Are you just kind of based on the markers and the methylation test on the frequency for?
Yeah, so we use the testing to determine the therapy. So it's very individualized. It's not like everyone gets the same thing and does the same protocol. Mm-hmm.
I thought so. Okay, Audrey?
Thank you. So great to hear from you today. Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Plasmalogens was actually one of the presentations at RADFest that really struck me as something kind of, like you said, new, more cutting edge, especially for brain health. They were bringing it.
Yeah.
Anyway, I'm interested in talking with you, and I just wanted to know how I would get started, and maybe I'd like to do some testing, looking at my immune system. As you were speaking, I realized, I have had a hit on my immune system, I think, since COVID, and something I experienced with the vaccine. So just wanted more information on how to get started and the kind of the costs that are involved in that.
Did they put the contact information on my slides? Yeah, or you could reach out to to Stacia at SilverTreeWellness.com. She basically is my director, so she can handle and manage any questions.
Probably insurance doesn't.
No, yeah. Insurance doesn't cover anything that works. I'm sorry. Any more questions?
Okay, I do have another question.
Yes.
I know, do you only work with patients here because I know you're local, or can you do telemedicine?
So that's an interesting question. So usually if I'm going to work with someone out of the state, I would have them come for their first visit in state. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I agree.
Yeah.
Okay.
I have to see them in person and do a physical exam and do my due diligence. And, the naturopathic laws are different than, like MD laws, DO laws, or even nurse practitioner laws, because, we have our own regulatory board, and that's both on a federal and a state level. So, not every state treats naturopaths the same. And so in the state of Arizona, we have the broadest scope of practice probably than I think every state except for Washington maybe, or Oregon. So that allows us to be primary care physicians here. But like in Colorado, for instance, they can't even prescribe. So they have a license, but they can't prescribe. So it makes it a little tricky sometime with the telemedicine. Yeah.
Sell it, yeah. Oh, so you're saying somebody that out of state, they can come and have the first consultation with you, and then from then on you can work from remote.
Yeah. So if we establish a plan of care, then I can work with them long distance, and then I need to see them once a year in the office.
Yeah, they have to come and see you once a year. Okay.
Yep.
Clear.
Okay, we have one last question here from Otto.
Yeah.
Presentation. Oops, thank you. I had a chance to experience your Mendler scan
Oh, yeah.
and Dr. Kelly. And how does this relate to what you presented today? Can you get any conclusions from the Mendler? to that, or is it more in depth than that?
So the reason why we do the Menla scan is to look at basically, the main things that I'm looking at in the Menla scan is intracellular, extracellular water compartments. I also want to know, is there visceral fat? What is the muscle, is muscle breaking down? Because the Menla will tell you whether or not your muscle mass is low and your fat mass is high. So I find that information really helpful because, when we're doing phospholipid therapy, part of what we're assessing too is the mitochondria getting enough energy that it can build your muscle and it can build your body up. So
What are some signs without testing somebody
that they need it.
that's happening? Yes.
Brain fog, chronic fatigue. Those probably are the top two, I would say. Brain fog and chronic fatigue.
Which usually, people, it's like, oh, it's the age, it's a thing, it's whatever,
Yeah.
but really could just be an
Or,
overload.
like a good dear friend of mine was diagnosed with AFib. And, he's super healthy, he's a biohacker, and AFib. And all this cardiovascular issues all of a sudden, as he got a little older. And he started to get really deep into phospholipid therapy, and now he no longer has AFib. He's doing great. He's healthier than he's ever been in his life. He's in his mid-60s. He's living his dream, He's super happy, super excited.
That's very exciting. Okay, we are done. Thank you so
Yeah.
much, Dr.
Yeah,
Smith.
Thank you. Thank you.